The job of product management on all levels is be able to connect the dots for people and make them excited and kind of see the light about something. And that's just amazing to me. It's an amazing feeling.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel. Hello and welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Today we are with Ofer Gayer, the VP of Product at Hunters, a SOC platform which aims to disrupt the SIEM category. His role includes overseeing all aspects of product vision, strategy, roadmap, and user experience, collaborating with leaders across the company to make the vision a reality. Ofer recently returned to Israel after spending 6 years in San Francisco, and prior to Hunters, Ofer managed a variety of cybersecurity product lines and teams at Exabeam and Imperva. Before transitioning into product, he was a security researcher at Incapsula and an IDF intelligence officer.
Thank you so much for joining me. Such an awesome career trajectory. From spending time as a captain in the IDF in some of the most incredible places within the intelligence units, to being a senior product manager at Imperva, to Exabeam, and today vice president of product at Series C company Hunters. Really one of the greatest prides in the Israeli tech scene. Has been making a lot of buzz lately, and I'm excited to sort of understand your positioning better in the product sphere and what that means to you. A little bit about your journey within product abroad and in Israel, and perhaps some of the differences, but then just as interestingly, product within security and what is that like? And so thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. So yeah, I started off when I kind of left the military. I was having fun in the military. It's always interesting. It's intelligence work. It's very sexy, but I was like, I want to see what's out there. I don't like inertia. I really like to kind of move away from my comfort zone as much as possible over time. Kind of, you can see that with every step that I kind of took. So I was like, let me see what's out there. I joined a company called Incapsula, pretty early on, 30 something employees, things that we today call product-led growth. So a SaaS, cloud platform. And in 2013 was kind of novel. I joined there as a security researcher. I was very enthusiastic about doing some, in the wild defending versus intelligence work that's usually on the more offending side. And we're kind of really hitting amazing product market fit, what I know today to be amazing product market fit, and kind of exploding. And we were small enough for me to get kind of good kind of optics into, okay, this is a company making a lot of aggressive decisions. They work really well, and understanding kind of, there's a business side. And that kind of really intrigued me. After a couple of years, I kind of moved into more senior roles. And when I relocated shortly after, I kind of moved into product management. I was having this conversation with my managers at the time. I really fell in love with the business side, right?
Wow.
So I moved to the business side. I wanted to do more than just security research. Yeah.
So what really was this? What made this shift for you? Because you're spending so much time as a senior researcher, really, and spending 7 years in the IDF and in some of the most intensive research oriented groups. You really learn, the art of researching and deep tech. And so what really made you say, okay, actually, I want to take now what I learned, but explore this in more of a business context? How did that happen?
I love security research. I feel I'm still kind of being in touch with a lot of security groups, and I have a lot of people in proper security research in my life. But I felt like I wanted to create bigger impact for the company that I'm part of. Security research is one part of it. And I always felt like there's some ceiling in the type of impact you can do when only looking super deep in one area. And product really gave me that ability to drive a lot more impact. Also felt like I have some sort of advantage because I am able to talk security and talk business and talk to customers and kind of be that focal point between everybody. So I felt like this is something I can do well and have fun doing.
Right. Okay. So looking back now, many years later, are you able to sort of distill what was it that captured you? So now that you've been doing this for quite some time and you've held numerous positions, is it still this? Is it still what you thought when you transitioned into this world?
I didn't know any, like, if you haven't done product management before, it's very different than what it is in practice. But what I really love, what I really enjoy is these moments of absolute clarity when something just clicks and you're able to crack something like, okay, this is where the market is going. This is what customers don't understand, or this is what our engineering doesn't get. And I'm able to connect dots for other people. And then they now understand something they haven't. This is how I see the job of product management on all levels, is be able to connect the dots for people and make them excited and kind of see the light about something. And that's just amazing to me. It's an amazing feeling.
And so specifically for diving into product within security, whether it's in the world of hunters or Imperva, is that dramatically different than product at other perhaps verticals? Is there different thinking that needs to take place, different experience that one needs to have?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in two aspects, it's very different, right? So one aspect is the type of expectation that customers or users have from a security product. They usually think of something that's super tech savvy, complicated, services heavy. And that's the type of persona that they think about, right? It's also the persona itself is super technical. That's how they perceive it. But what I've come to realize is security is just lagging behind just the rest of the product world and just making things simple and easy to use. So although we're not kind of B2C product managers that keep thinking about small features that delight the users, we're definitely not doing a great job in a lot of products to just make the product easy. And the products that are able to make the job easy for that customer are the ones that win. It doesn't matter if you have some amazing engine that you developed, if your customer is unable to take advantage of it because it's just too complicated and it's not easy to consume. I think this is
And
where,
here's where we sort of this is where we sort of divert from perhaps the classical literature on research and security, right? Because in researchers, you would say, well, my role is to find the most meaningful insights with whatever crazy technology I'm building, and really highly trained people will make use of this engine. But you're saying, wait, the world works a little bit differently, and we have to actually account for that.
yeah, had that conversation with a friend of mine. And he said, when I was a researcher, and he was one of the top researchers in some company, and he said, I thought that the most exciting thing and most important thing for a security company is to be able to find 0 days, right? And if you don't find 0 days, then what is it that you're doing? And then I joined here. I'm looking at it. I'm working with a product, and I was like, we're at stage 0, stage 1, stage 3, and 0 days is like something that's over the horizon for most customers. They're not even getting started with a lot of their security needs, right? That's kind of like aha moment for a lot of security researchers that kind of start working more with product and not just finding the bad guys in the coolest way.
Incredible. And so if you're looking today at sort of bridging this gap, and you as a researcher, you as a user, and at the end as a product manager, bridging the gap between the world and research, right? How do you balance that? And sort of how do you know to prioritize all of this big mess together into one coherent strategy of this is how we should do things, and especially in a place where you have a lot of other people that are competing with you for speed, for agility, for ease of use.
Exactly. So I think what we look at is looking at what our customers trying to achieve and then figuring out what's the best way to help them achieve that in the easiest way, in the most predictable way. Customers, especially in the security space, they really want someone they're looking for kind of a Sherpa to help them and say, I know what the security threat is that you're trying to tackle. Here's what it is. And I have the recipe to how to tackle it. And if you follow these simple rules and use this simple platform, you're able to protect against these threats instead of saying, listen, there's a lot of things you can do with the platform. So here's a bunch of stuff and you can figure it out and we can use services, and this very vague approach to security, right? Telling you everything but the kitchen sink kind of. And I'm a very kind of, let's focus on what matters the most to you, customer, and have a very clear way to achieve, to kind of mitigate this risk. This is your top risk. Let's mitigate that risk for you and have it in a very prescriptive manner. I think that is a very honest, candid approach to security versus having a little bit of everything, but really you're not covering most of your attack surface. It's about looking at your attack surface and then figuring out, how do I prioritize and what assurance do I really have that I'm covering something? Yeah.
So I'd love to sort of pick your brain on this, because you would assume that there are some fields in the world that are going to stay with high friction and high barrier to entry, where really you do need some expertise in order to deal with it, right? For example, if you want to be a doctor, you still have to study for, 7 or 8 years in order to treat patients. But it almost feels like today's cybersecurity platforms are making it easier for people to have less experience, be able to resolve more within their organizations. And I understand that perhaps that is coming because of a lack of experienced people, and so companies have to adapt, and therefore products have to adapt. Is this the right way to go about this? Do you think that we should be building products that make it simpler rather than perhaps empowering the experts within organizations?
I think it's a valid point, but I do think that most products out there today, they just add another thing to look at, not necessarily make that thing simpler. So we now have an attack on, let's say, Kubernetes or Lambda functions or whatever, right? And now I have another thing to look at that covers yet another attack surface, which is great. It's important to have that. But someone needs to help the underlying, the end customer, which is one team eventually that needs to cover all these different things that are changing, and say,
Right.
Hey, I'm here to help and figure out of all these different signals, all these different things, here's what it is. Because like you said, it's very hard for that person to be an expert. That person, that's the bottleneck today, right? And nobody can be an expert on so many fields in security. I was a researcher. I was pretty good in application security. I'm not an expert in endpoint security. You ask me to reverse engineer malware, I don't know how to do that. I'm pretty good with web application security and DDoS. I can talk about that probably for a few hours, right? Most security people, they have some scope where they're the expert on. And the problem is, you can't just say, well, as a company, we're going to focus on web application security, because big companies, they have everything, right? So how can we take that everything and distill it to something that's consumable by the average Joe or Jan in a SOC? I think that's that's an amazing challenge to look at, because that really moves the needle for companies, right?
I love that understanding, because you're right. I mean, at the end, it's expanding in a ridiculous way, and internal teams within organizations can't possibly keep up with everything new that's going on. And so even if what I said before has some ground to it, it's still lacking this very fundamental idea that, every day there's new things that are popping up that we just have, that we just don't have visibility into, and we necessarily don't have the capacity to deal with. You had a unique experience as well, venturing out and doing product management back in California, doing it back in Israel. The startup nation ecosystem obviously is growing, and product is, I think there's an agreement that product is still something that we're developing a skill for. It's still a work in progress. How do you see it? You've experienced, both sides
Yeah.
now. What were some of your impressions?
Yeah, it's very interesting to kind of I've been back for 6 months now, and I'm looking at different things and culturally in product that are different. So, for example, we have a huge tendency to go directly to solutions, and we
Yeah.
don't really like to talk about the problem and really distill. We're like, okay, let's go, 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 go. But in product, our job first and foremost is to say stop. Why? And Israelis are go, 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 go. So that kind of creates a interesting kind of not conflict, but contradiction or tension
Sure.
there. Another thing is Israelis, because of the cultural differences, sometimes most companies, most B2B software companies, the big business, it's in North America, right? And when they talk to customers, they don't pick up on the nuance of what the customer is actually telling you, right? So they would say, "Oh, we had a great conversation,
Yeah.
right? You had an okay conversation, or maybe it was not very good at all. They were not happy. They're not going to tell you, to your face like an Israeli, right? So it's a combination of slight confirmation bias, but also cultural differences that are very interesting. That now that I talk to a customer and I look at around the room, and sometimes like that's not. Let's listen to what we're being told here, because that's not necessarily, they're not necessarily happy, or they're very happy, but they truly are happy. And here's how we can tell, right?
No, it
Um,
almost feels like an understanding like this can't come from a textbook or from mentorship or from simply experiencing it in Israel. I mean, it kind of feels like you sort of have to live through those experiences, get those sort of get that friction yourself in order to have that ability to even notice it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes people here, listen, you have experienced PMs in Israel that have experienced it, but they don't understand maybe why. They will say, "Oh, this customer was annoying. They told me one thing, but sometimes, but it's not. It's just cultural differences." If you live it, if you live in the U.S. and it surrounds you, like, okay, there's just other cues to pick up on, versus an Israeli it's not really picking up on. It's just like it's in your face.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that it's a conversation I've been having a lot lately with different people about, giving more credit to these cultural differences and not assuming that one culture perhaps is the right one or the better one in terms of these communication, because at the end, that just leads to points of failure, right? I mean, there's a system that is very complicated, that's built on hundreds of years of capitalism and innovation. There's a reason why the country why this country succeeds in what it does, and there's also a reason why Israel succeeds in what it does. And people who are able to merge, sounds like they have sort of a superpower, right?
yeah, exactly. And you need to find the right altitude for the right phase of your company, right? Whatever worked for you as a 10-person company may probably doesn't work for 50, probably doesn't work for 150, right? And 500, not a lot of Israeli companies really are doing well at above 500, right? You can see that a lot of execs start pouring in from the US sometimes to bridge that culture gap.
Ofer, do you miss researching? Do you miss sitting down for days and weeks and sort of slamming your head on the table and trying to figure out, what is happening?
I don't miss that part. I sometimes miss just having the level of kind of scientific clarity that I cracked something, because PM is a lot of kind of experience, and you're working with a lot of unknowns, and you're trying to build your company and make it grow, right? In research, it's very kind of, there's a good dichotomy. Like I was able to to address that issue. I was able to
Sure.
crack that very kind of clear cut. And sometimes it makes it easy. It's a lot less of a mental toll, right? It's like, I know I fixed it. It's 100% right. PM, you can make a decision and you have a good gut feeling, but it's working this week. It's working that week. Third week, oh, that actually we're missing, or we're not missing. Okay, fourth week. It's always kind of an up and down. So it might be fun to kind of have something that's a bit like, okay, I'm done for the day. I know exactly what I need. PM is always like open-ended. It's part of staying out of the comfort zone that I like so much, but sometimes you just want to, take a rest. But I love it.
It sounds incredible, and personally, it sounds very fulfilling to be able to hold both pieces of the puzzle and to both have that scientific capacity, but also the ability to lead product teams and lead visions of how to take these scientific understandings, translate them to the real world, make a business impact, understand culturally how to do that globally, and grow that experience over time, which sounds like just a fascinating journey. So, Ofer, thank you so much for this time and for your energy and for your impact on our ecosystem. And best of luck with hunters, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. Take care.
Thank you.